Hey, Margus. So,
Hello.
so Margus will share the screen and give a short presentation about his experience in a garage cooperative in Tallinn in a minute. And thanks everybody who have joined. Um, we are here to launch the third competition from the competition series Flock of Ideas. And as usual, we will start with a short talk about the topic. And Margus will share his experience. Um, So the competition series in Cesis is about the garage, unusual typology. Today it's the launch, 8th of March. On next Wednesday, it's going to be a workshop and a tour happening in Cesis, for which it will be possible to apply through Google form, which will be shared. Mostly, it's going to be focused on the students. However, anyone who's interested can join. And competition itself will be started on 18th of March. On that day at 18 afternoon, we will publish the brief, the task, and also the base materials as DVG and images and 3D model. So the competition will go on for 7 days, and it will be open to anyone to participate. So this one is not restricted only to the workshop participant, but this is free to all. Digital competition where you have to submit only 3 images. Let's start. Let's start with Margus' presentation. He could share the screen and tell us about his experience.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Carles, for the introduction. I'm invited here as a expert, and as it turns out, you don't need much to be an expert on garages. It depends if you how much experience or have you owned one. But when I was share screen, um, is it working? It's working.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works. Good. Okay. So what I wanted to show you or to tell you or what to share it was the journey of mine. Because yeah, I'm not an expert, but when I started thinking about garages, it seemed that I've been to many, and only last few years I have owned one, and actually tried to figure out what could be done in one. But when I started the journey or started thinking about it, actually the first question was like, what is a garage? And it turns out it's a word from French, gare, which is to store. So obviously my first garage, or our old probably the oldest garage, is one of those on the picture where stuff is held, maybe even before cars existed, as in the car being the most connected thing about the garage. And then the second one is a really typical typical picture, and was one of my first. Uh, in one of those garages, a friend of mine had a place where we could play because his father never used the garage, and we could just play along with and play around with old chemicals, tools, and engine parts. And but this was mostly the picture that I had throughout life, where a garage was something that belonged to a house. And when I was reading various maybe articles about what is a garage or where has it come, then I think, or like at least Wikipedia said that at some point in history, architects started finding a word for a storage for a car, and somehow cars and sheds and a garage really became intertwined. And this one is probably a dream to have or like a dream to have a special place for your car, as it is on this picture. But in my childhood, it was more like this, where we had something in between of a shed and a garage. And I'm in these first slides, I'm only showing you closed doors because I don't have any pictures of the insides anymore, but only the memories and what was done in them. But this metal garage, for example, became something of let's say easier and more available version of a proper built garage. And I think I built my first bicycles and mopeds in one of those. Whereas my father, being a truck driver, he spent most of the time, most of his, not most, but a lot of his time in this kind of places, where I was also dragged along, and I think I saw a lot of work being done there, and more the connection of a garage garage became connected to cars and vehicles and buses and trucks and all this machinery. But like we have in the cities, for example, now the garage is something like a place where you bring your car, not as in if we look at this place, then we clearly see a moment of working or tinkering or something that is done with yourself, or like this beginning of or a connection of a DIY and vehicles. But here we only use these places as storage. And another funny example from, like, this is something that I just stumbled upon some years ago, where this is an actual picture from a street where this neighborhood has become a downtown area with high rises, and the garages are no longer of use. And 1 year later, actually, these garages don't exist anymore, and will in some way or another become a place for a car again, but not as it has been before. And then another example, which probably we all have in our heads somewhere in the suburbs or districts, is these huge places that hold hundreds and hundreds of small garages. And actually, there is a movie about this place. This one is located in Tallinn, in Lasnamäe, and I think maybe later we can link it, or if someone can find it, but I have never found it later online. It's called The Ant's Nest, and it's actually showing what's left of this car world, or like what has been building upon it, where people start using these spaces as their extended homes in a way. And I feel like this is the, like, when I saw this world from this movie, I started realizing that the whole childhood, or the whole of these previous pictures and slides and garages that I've been are really strongly connected to our, like, work that we desire. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cars. It can be anything. It can be, I don't know, we can see fishing elements in these places, or maybe some kind of crafting, or in this case it seems like a living room or some memorabilia from different times. Another example that I've been in is a really interesting, or like, I cannot pass this example from Estonia. It's in Narva, in eastern Estonia. It's we call it Narva Venice, because the garages are actually not really for cars, but for boats mostly. And they are like little boat sheds, but still they are garages. And in some cases, people have built their second floors, which is now a summer home. So there is with this example, the difference between a storing of a vehicle and a summer home, or a dacha, as we have it in this part of the world, is really there is really like a little distinction, or it can be really mixed, and it's not only anymore about cars. And yeah, so this is about vehicles. I wanted to show more examples because some years ago, or actually last year, I was on a tour or on a garage tour in Tartu, and we were shown some interesting places. And this is an example where architects or engineers' ambition has played a role. When we have these typical garage cooperatives, the same one as in the competition we have coming, and in this example or many others, it was a group basically built from a group of people who had access to a car at some point in Soviet times. It wasn't that easy. Not everybody owned their cars, so not everybody could own a garage. Like to own a garage, you had to have a car beforehand. And then this complex, this really weird B-shaped thing belongs to the people from the building next door. And they had this weird plot where someone had an idea to make them in these arced shapes, so you could get more space in one of the garages. Instead of having a square, it was a bit extended from the sides, each one. For example, it's just a funny example of how these things are also made. Then another example that we cannot go through is from Tartu. Again, this is now we're getting closer to living again, because here it's the architect is called Tiit Sild, who started this little movement in one of those cooperatives where the garages were in a really bad state, and the ownership was a bit different than they're usually. In this case, the ownership of a garage was a particular piece of land, and on this land they could like avoid a bit of like building regulations and take down the existing house and build a new one on top. And then in this case there is one, but now I think there's already like 5 houses like this. And in this example, probably the garage original shape will not exist at some point anymore, but it will be replaced. The only memory of the garage will be the rhythm or the size of the houses. Yeah, that's why. Since we already talked about movies, I recently stumbled upon this series called Arkitekten. It's a Norwegian, really short. It has 4 episodes, 20 minutes each, but it's like a little bit of an exaggerated problem in an imaginary near future where cars are not used anymore in the city, and the parking garages, similar to the ones that I mentioned before, are standing empty. And this young architect, who is he's an intern, she's an intern, but really not in a very well-off money-wise. So she moves to a garage house where apparently they found out that it's cool to live now. And this curtain walled space is basically her apartment, which is the size of a parking lot. It's kind of showing that in very extreme cases, living under a bridge or living in a garage is not that far apart, actually. I'm not gonna ruin the plot, or spoil the plot, but you could try to find it online. And now, with all these examples and all of these stories, or why I mentioned these garages, I'm coming to the garage that Karlis already mentioned, the one that I and my friends have been dwelling in. This is, as you see, those red doors on the side of the road. This is north of Tallinn. It's a really typical garage cooperative. Actually, the size of this has already shrinked a bit because of this new street, which used to be a railroad before. But this is a really interesting position in the city. It's like it's kind of a, on the left you see a military base, and on the right you see like these old factory areas which are now becoming these super hip creative factories, and in the middle it's going to be quite a big traffic street, and these garages are actually kind of a wall or a barrier for the military base, so they are kind of like protective towards us, that these houses won't be taken down, and also that the like general public cannot really see what's happening there, or this is how militaries operate, or things like that. And our like, I don't know if it's really visible because it's kind of light drawing, but this was something when I was doing thesis in the university. I started analyzing the space and thinking of how to take it apart and what kind of things should be there. And from this kind of schemes, we started going to reality. And our small little group made our first exhibition. We needed we wanted to showcase our final thesis works, and the garage seemed to be the perfect spot for that. So we cleaned it up, and this space on the picture is actually the basement of where usually the cars were fixed from below. This is now a perfect place to exhibit. And quite quickly we had like a lot of visitors, and in a way this place started gaining popularity, or like becoming into people's minds as like a place of events in a way. But not only events, we also moved in. We were cooking there. We were having our office, doing our creative work in the summertime when it was okay to be there. And also in the very same basement as we showed before, built a sauna, which was an experiment on its own, but in a way it worked, and people really liked it, and I hope to open it again soon. This is like a typical picture of behind the blurred glass, and it was actually quite warm. Also, in some cases, the opening parties were already like a bit of like ant's nest on its own, where people gathered together and then crawled around the building. And even in some cases, the year after the first exhibition, we made an open call for more projects, and there was like 7-ish residencies throughout the summer season. And in some cases, even you see it tried to become like a professional gallery, where we painted the walls white and covered all the tools and the tables. And in a way, it actually worked. Also as a workshop. So in a way, this handy doing and everything stayed. But and I cannot hide. I also have fixed the car there at some point. But it's not a rule. It was just out of necessity, and then you see that the garage is built for that. So actually, I'm going to use it for that. But mostly now it's wood workshop and storage, as it's intended, really being built for. And to end, I wanted to show like just this one visual. Marilyn, I think I saw your name here as well. Where she, like these previously mentioned thesis works which we exhibited. One of them was Marilyn's Practical Utopias, which was placed in the same downtown high-rise garages. Or actually, she was talking about how people would dwell in the city and using the structures that are already there, or kind of like not building or building something out of what you get from stuff laying around. And this garage complex in a way became a place of, she called it mother house, where small houses and dwelling spots would emerge from. And it's still like you can see it as this place for crafting and making and storing and building and so on. And what I like kind of want to finish up with this slide is like from all of these examples and all of our experience and this experiment here, I think garage is something like a place of doing, but the place of doing whatever is yours. And if it's a car, it will be a car. If it's wood or other crafts, it will be that. And I think it, in a way, this competition, what we have now started or kicked off, it's super interesting, especially in this sense that I feel like a garage has gotten like this very strong connection with cars and vehicles and storing and just hiding stuff away behind the doors. But actually, from all of the experience that I've had, and most of you I think as well, is that it's a place of doing, and it's really connected to making. And I think I will finish here. I think there was a plan to have a bit of discussion. Carlis?
Yes, thank you,
And
Margus.
also questions, because I feel like I might have jumped over so many things and maybe skipped many things that I wanted to mention also. So, yeah.
I think we could do the first round of questions now, if anyone has any to ask Margus regarding his experience in garages in Tallinn.
So
Quiet.
super clear.
That's quite impressive how you managed to put in one garage all the functions I can imagine. So you actually own one garage, but within 2 years you managed to make it a gallery, a sauna, a workshop, a living unit. It's quite a prototype.
Well, obviously I wasn't alone, but and that was the kind of the point of this place, was that since I was so curious about like what this weird place could be, I wanted to see, like to open it up and to give people a chance to come and think about it. And yeah, really very weird things have been made, like crafted there. I've actually accommodated guests. I think 3 people, or even, yeah, I think some nights have been spent there also, even like, and yeah, it doesn't need to be this oily, smelly place. It's just the walls that have gotten these smelly layers. But if you paint it and put the carpet on the floor, it's like a summer home in itself. Like, it doesn't really. So that's why I'm saying it's like it's just a room. It doesn't matter if it's from brick or wood or metal. It's what you do in it, and it's just like these interesting architectural ambitions that we might have in some cooperatives like yours in Cesis. But yeah.
Okay, I think we can. Oh, Gustas, go for it.
Hey, hey, Margus.
Hi,
I'm
Kostas.
in a bus now, so I'm not gonna. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, yeah, I liked your comment about this aspect of tinkering and this distinction between garage where you just keep a car and the garage where you tinker with a car. And I hadn't really appreciated this distinction before, which also makes me think of like tinkering is kind of becoming obsolete because like new cars cannot be tinkered with, you know. And I was interested if you could comment a bit more about how like garages are intertwined with right to repair and like tinkering, you know, in 21st century when we drive computers.
Yeah, actually, it's a really good point. I think maybe I kind of just jumped over this car thing as well. It was like, yeah, at some point, I think in Soviet times, especially owning a car meant that you had to kind of have the skills and knowledge to tinker on it or to fix it. And I think it was even necessary of the quality that those cars had. And now when our cars are more like our, I don't know, they're more temporary. They're more like your phone that you change every couple of years, and taking it to a garage means taking it to a repair shop. So it's not the same anymore. And these spaces that we have kind of come accommodated to as garages are not that anymore. So yes, I feel like in this time now, of course, this car thing still stays. Like we have hobby cars or whatever, like people fix their old cars and stuff anyways. But I think everybody has their garage somehow, like be it maybe it's yours, maybe you call it the studio of your spare room in your apartment where you build your I don't know, models or computers or whatever. Like it still feels the same. It's just not in that same place anymore. Like those garages that we are used to are just connected to streets, and that's why they're like that. That's why they have big doors and fitting these cars and so on. But if now, especially like before putting together this presentation, I was starting to think of garages so much more than those huge two doors, actually. So I don't know if it answers your question, but I feel like our garages are well hidden nowadays, even in more clever places, because we still tinker, even if it's not like even if you don't have woodworking skills or like machinery, we still, I think everybody still uses their creative handwork somehow. So I could call any place a garage in that sense.
So garaging is an action. It's like it's a process.
Yeah,
You can garage anywhere.
yeah. In my mind, actually, in my mind, it feels like that. Yeah. Even if the word comes from storing, I feel like if we make it into garaging, then like and like yeah, like if I take like it depends on the language, but if I take a car to a mechanic, it's also going to a garage, but it doesn't mean that it's stored. It means that it's gonna be worked on. So in that sense, I could use it as a verb. Yeah. Carlis, you are muted.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat from Maria Katrina. Were any of the neighboring garage users becoming interested in the actions you did in the garage in Tallinn? Maybe some of the transformations happening, are there any transformations happening also nearby after your prototyping?
Yeah, good question. Well, yes, of course, people were interested, but at the same time, like it has this typical the whole place has around 70 people or garages, and not many are in use or not many are actively in use. So if people, obviously over this year or two, people notice that something is happening, but I think it could be thought two ways. Like at some point I felt like people think it as a typical, this kind of developing newer activities which are happening in all of these kind of older complexes and so on. So I don't feel like anyone was too surprised. I think people were more surprised of this, how we transformed the space more into more like a cozy environment. Not only that we had openings or parties there, but how the space was transformed. And in a way, no, not yet. It hasn't made a big impact. I feel like there are now I think it's starting to happen because younger people are buying them, because since now still the owners are mostly original owners and mostly older men who don't really actively go there, or they still fix their cars, or they still store their stuff there. But the interest in joining the community has risen from younger people. But again, since it's a really central location, it's super hard to gain access to one. So that's where it kind of halts. But I feel like in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, it's gonna be totally different story. Most probably, we are working on ways to maybe we can bring water and sewage inside, which is not a thing in a garage. So if that happens, maybe more people have interest in maybe making their small business there or whatever. But yeah, like the building typology itself really doesn't, or like on its own, it doesn't really inspire people just to come and open it up and so on. It's just a really good storing place for now.
Okay, maybe I could show the garage in Cesis shortly, and then if anyone gets a question in their mind, just type it in chat and we can try to continue discussion afterwards. So, yeah, are you seeing the screen? I assume you do. Yeah, so this is the main protagonist for all this competition and event series. These are garages on Rhine Street in Cēsis. It's quite a special project from late 80s. And what is very interesting about these garages is that it's made with a special stone material. And also the level difference is such that the roof is very near the pedestrian zone. It's also worth mentioning that it's extremely central place. So it's the center of the city. And here on the left, you can see the new creative quarters of Cesis, with many new enterprises happening and also art exhibitions happening there yearly. So here you can see a bit more of it. What's interesting about this kind of history of this project is also the recent history is that it was planned to make car parking on the roof of these garages, but it came out to be way too expensive and also probably not very efficient for the amount of cars that can be placed there. So they are currently under a question what to do with them, or should be done with them at all. And what is interesting also about them, due to the central location, is that the planning regulations don't really define them as being used only as garages. There can be various exceptions, since they are located in this mixed-use central area of Cesis. So it can be examined any possible new uses that they can accommodate. So yeah, garage plan. It's really pleasant to draw this if you know the copy-paste command. That's yeah, that's very interesting to imagine having this vast landscape of the rooftop and then seeing that actually it consists of roughly 70 or 80 units that are almost all equal size, and it can accommodate various types of functions here. So far in this lecture, we did not really look too much inside of the typical garage. Of course, only Margus showed all the possible prototypes it's possible to put into his garage. However, we will be doing a workshop on the 13th, which is next Wednesday. So we will do a tour around garage cooperatives in Cesis. We will visit 4 locations, and we will also get access to see inside of them some of the garages to see how are they used at the moment and how it looks there. Following that, we will do a screening of Katrīnas Neibergas short film Garages from 2016, which is a documentary about exactly what's happening there, and really like echoing what Margus was telling about that the garage is a place for doing, and she was really digging deep into finding people who are doing the most unique things that you can imagine in these places. And following that, the screening is also happening in Rāņu 25, Cēsis, literally just across from the garages. And we will also do a workshop and ideation session and discussion there. The purpose for this workshop and discussions is that it's also formulating this kind of a brief. The result of the workshop will be published, and it will become a brief and base material also for the competition. The competition itself will start on 18th March. Yeah, that's a mistake. 18th of March at 8 o'clock. As always, we will publish the task and base material on the go in the moment when it starts, and it will require only 1 to 3 images to submit. The task will be defined, but as you can already imagine, the protagonists are these garages. So you can start imagining and dreaming about new possible ways how to use them. Also to mention, the competition itself is open to all. So in the workshop, we have invited students and from universities and schools. If you're interested, there will be open Google form where you can sign up, and if there is place, you can also join. The competition itself, we are looking for more professional entries, more thinking about students, young professionals who can provide already some kind of higher quality graphic material, which can be examined by the jury. So we will collect a small jury of experts who will do voting. And we will also do a second voting poll, which will be public and the workshop participants. So yeah, that's all from me. Are there any new questions coming in? Okay, if there are none, then I think we can finish. Thank you, Margus. It was a really interesting talk, and we will publish this online this evening or tomorrow.
Thank you for inviting me. Looking forward to all of the things that people can imagine. I cannot make it on the 13th, but I will try to come or go sometime later. It's really looks really interesting, that cooperative that we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining, and see you on 13th or